Good morning.
Good
I'm your
morning.
host, Dr. Vijala Kennedy, Principal of Kumaraguru College of Liberal Arts and Science. I welcome the speaker, moderator, participants, our media partner, Times of India, and our marketing partner, Social Beat. Kumaraguru College of Liberal Arts and Science welcomes you to the Conversation 4 on the topic India Emerging as a Stronger Economy in the webinar series of New World Order. And this is a very special session because this program is hosted on behalf of the Economics Department, which we have launched this year, offering BA Economics. To set the context, in 2019, India, which is a $2.8 trillion economy, had a powerful vision to move towards a $5 trillion economy. And we had a Nobel Prize through Abhijit, who was an Indian American, and along with, of course, Esther Duflo and Michael Kramer. So it was a wonderful year, and we were progressing. Government had set specific plans towards the 5 trillion economy. But then India walked into this shock of the pandemic. And today we are slowly rebooting the economy. Today in the paper, if you look at it, many measures are being taken to revive and also to strengthen the economy. So in this context, this is a very large topic, very vast topic, but we have the scope of the conversation we would like to discuss is on the impact of this pandemic on the Indian economy, immediate and intermediary. Incidentally, today to study Tamil Nadu under the leadership of Professor C. Rangarajan, a panel has been formed to actually study the impact. But I think we should have a cursory view of what is happening in the economy and which are the sectors in future, looking forward, which are the sectors which will drive the economy, and what are the emerging employment patterns which will take us forward. And the other question that we would like to broach upon is what's the role of government in reviving our SMEs, which contributes to around 29% of our GDP. And a larger question of a long-term perspective is, with shifting geopolitics, will India emerge as a stronger, as a bigger, and a much more impactful economy? So this is the context of our conversation today. And to lead this conversation, we have a fantastic speaker and a moderator here with us. I welcome our speaker, Mr. Nagappan Valliappan, who's an author, columnist, independent director with more than 3 decades of experience in financial services industry. He was a vice president of Hindustan Chamber of Commerce, and he served as a member of SMAC. And when he was the chairman of Federation of Indian Stock Exchanges. And he's associated with academic institutions like Madras University. And we are very happy to have you as a speaker here. And we welcome you for this discussion.
Thank you.
To moderate the session, we have Joe Scaria, who's a journalist, speaker, and a trainer. And he has over 3 decades of experience in media and has worked in top-notch national dailies and magazines and worked across the country. And now he has moved into being an independent journalist, a speaker, and a trainer for very large organizations, including media houses. So we welcome our moderator, Joe Scaria. Thank you for joining us. We welcome all the participants for this conversation. The format of the conversation will be for the next 40-45 minutes. There will be discussions between the moderator and the speaker. And followed by that, for 15 minutes, we will have a Q&A session. Please do post your question and answer even when the conversation is on in the Q&A box, so that the speaker and the moderator can pick up the questions and answer your queries. So thank you very much for joining. And I would request the participants to listen and reflect. And because economy is a subject, or economics is a subject, it's not just a country-wide. It does not only make an impact on the country, but also on the households and the individuals. With that thought, I will hand it over to Joe to start the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vijala. Pleasure talking to you, Mr. Nagappan, this morning.
Morning.
Yeah, it's a very pleasant Sunday morning here in Kottayam, from where I am speaking. I hope it's the same out there.
Yeah. Chennai
Just
is
to,
hot.
oh, I see, it's warm there. Okay. Just to get an easy entry into the topic and have some context setting, let me ask you, even before the COVID struck us, the Indian economy was actually trailing off a bit. And there was suddenly a slowdown in sectors like automobiles. So I would like you to just tell us how we reached here in the first place, and then the spots that we are in now, and what to expect in the immediate months that come.
Yeah. See, you're right. I think how we reached here, it's very important to look at that background to set a context right. It's not that we've been doing extremely well and now all of a sudden it has gone towards a downtrend. We have been going through a rough patch, and there was a tough time. And the expectation was that by the next year, the economy will start slowly reviving. And that was the expectation. And starting from auto sector to most of the sectors were going through a very bad patch. And in that context, this problem came in, and it has aggravated the situation, accelerated the problem. What would have happened in the next 6 months or 1 year? Now, I think we are going to see this in the next 1 or 2 months. We have already started seeing it. And in this context, when you look at it, the immediate consequence or effect, apart from psychological or the behavioral patterns, what we are going to change, happen, and all those things, economically, the immediate hit is the production. Production is hit. On one side, agricultural production is going on to some extent in some pockets of the country, but then the industrial production has come to halt, and now it slowly started. As you could have seen, Hyundai has started the manufacturing cars, and they've started getting bookings also, and some of the other people have also started. But one thing I want to start, when everyone or all of us are thinking, many of us are thinking that it's going to be pretty bad, and we are going to go through a tough time and a rough patch. I just want to start with one positive note. In fact, to quote you from one of your TEDx talks, you're mentioning about the Malthusian Theory of population. What was mentioned more than 200 years back, the food production is going to grow arithmetically and population is going to multiply geometrically, and we may have a famine. And nothing has happened. And to quote from my practical, my life, my father, who lived up to 96 years, who has seen the Spanish flu, who has seen World War I, World War II, lived in Burma, come all the way by walking through Calcutta to Chennai and Tamil Nadu. I've heard him telling about stories worse than whatever is happening right now. So I don't think world is going to come to an end. We are going through a tough patch, but we will get out of it.
I see.
We have that kind of a spirit. With that, having said that, it is not that everything is hunky-dory or everything is going to be very positive immediately. Certainly, we are going to take a hit on the GDP. The production levels are going to be low. It is very obvious from the production estimates, the GDP estimates given by the learned people world over, the so-called, the rating agencies and investor service companies, which were quoting somewhere, whatever they were quoting in April, now they've reduced it to half. Just to quote a few, that IMF said the GDP is going to come down in India from 1.9 to 2.5, 1.9%, and World Bank said 1.5 to 2.8%, and the S&P Global Rating, which said 3.5%, revised it to 1.8%. Asian Development Bank is one of the very positive one, which said 4% in April. Now they are reconsidering it. And on the other side, you have Moody's, which said about 2.6%. Now they say zero. Okay, GDP growth is going to be zero in the current fiscal. And you have ICRA saying -2%, and Nomura from 0.4% to contraction of 5.2%. They're talking about contraction. Now this is very maybe a little bit scary. I don't want to use that word, but because in the last 50 or 60 years post-independence, 4 or 5 times we have gone through negative growth, and even those negative growth is not very, very, very negative. Maybe in 1957, 58, we had -0.4%, 65, 66, mid 60s, and the 70s, we had negative growth. And apart from that, in the last 30, 40 years, we always had a positive growth. The rate of growth is less, more, that's okay, but then we have always been having positive growth. But Nomura is saying we're going to contract. And there is a difference in the opinion given by consensus between them in April and May. Now, when June comes, we don't know what will happen, which is giving 0.8%. Now, this is one part. Look at the numbers deciphered in the budget. The budget talks about that the entire budget of union budget is built upon the premise that our GDP is going to grow at nominal growth of 10%. And the numbers, what they talk about, the GDP value is 2,24,89,420 crores. And like Vijala was mentioning, I think if you look at in dollar terms, it's going to be roughly about $3 trillion economy. Now, what has happened in the last 1.5 months or 45 days or 50 days? There are many places where production is nil. There are a few places the production is 50%. And this 3 trillion economy, if it's halted for about 1.5 months, 100%, the loss could be somewhere around 250 billion dollars. And for 2 months, it could be $500 billion. And 50% halt, $125 billion will be the loss of production or loss of GDP. Now, to some extent, we are benefited by the crude price coming down drastically. So we are not able to take full advantage of it because our economy is not running in a running condition. But it has certainly helped to some extent in shoring up our oil reserves, and which we failed to build up in the past. We are building the reserves now, and we may have, if everything comes up all right, we will have storage of 87 days or 90 days probably. So this is the status. Now, when this kind of loss happens, $200 billion to $300 billion happens, are we going to have, like in China, we had this vengeance buying or revenge buying or something? Are we going to have that? I doubt very much. In India, we will have some sort of a revenge buying in certain sectors. It will be there, but not everywhere. So this is one part. But the same agencies are also quoting that in 2021-22, we will have a higher growth of GDP. S&P says 7.5%, Nomura says 7.9%, Moody's says 6.6%. Now, these numbers probably you have to take it with a pinch of salt because this is on a lower base. So the base effect will be there, so you cannot take it as a full growth. Now, are we prepared to face this kind of our budget? My first concern will be where there are some sources where government can generate. RBI is going to be a mola. I mean, they're going to give. They are capable today. But then, if you look at the budget per se, I think we are still in primary deficit level. You forget about fiscal deficit. You forget about even revenue deficit. The primary deficit itself is not zero. So that's a matter of concern. After 40, 70 years, we are still having a deficit at a primary level. So this is the background with which we are right now. This is the problem before the government, how they are going to generate revenue, how they are going to tackle the, again to quote you, the mango tree analogy, how they are going to, take care of the people, immediate requirements are there, the vulnerable society, and then go to the next level like MSMEs or other people, and then look at the larger picture. So I think there is a big challenge facing the government facing, and but I'm reasonably sure that there are ways out. We'll discuss about it.
Okay. Since you're talking about the deficits, certainly we need more liquidity in the market, get things back on track after we get over the pandemic, at least the worst part of it. There is a huge concern about the state of affairs of the banking sector itself. Every other day, you come to hear of somebody having defrauded the banks. In fact, today, there is the case of a company called RBL, where the owners have fled the country after duping banks led by a consortium, led by SBI. They've duped banks to the tune of some 411 crores. A Basmati exporting company. What do you think is the state of banking here, particularly in the context of a lot of NBFCs having trouble? We had the DHFL crisis, we had the ILNFS crisis, and we have all these borrowers going bust. So how is liquidity going to come into the system?
See, crisis is part and parcel of every economy. The crisis will come and go, but a good government, a good institution will learn from the crisis and then see to that we don't repeat it happening. But unfortunately, we have these kind of things repeatedly happening here. Amtech Auto was a classic case in 2015, and then you had ILFS and you had Divan Housing, DHFL. So these are all the things. Now, the challenge is that these are all not, these things have not happened over a period, I mean, immediately in the last 1 year or 2 years. This has happened over a period of time. The lethargic attitude of, the administrators and the banks at various levels, that nobody is going to question them if anything goes wrong. Now, that is slowly changing, but then still, I think it is not sending, we are not still sending right kind of message probably. See, which has led to a state today. I don't want to look at a macro level. I'm discussing about micro level. Look at an average housewife. Now she is calling and asking people like us that is it safe to deposit the money in a bank? And they're not, remember, they're not asking about a private sector bank. They're asking about a public sector bank. I know that this is unwarranted right now. It is not all that scary or all that problematic. But then you cannot say that, because government is sending again and again very clear message there to the banks that slowly that you are on your own. We cannot keep on funding you on one side. On the other side, the NPA levels are not coming down. It was about to come down last year, but then again now due to this COVID problem, it's going to balloon, and the NPA levels are going to go up. So we are only postponing it because this 3 months moratorium, so that technically you will not classify them. It may go from SMA1 to SMA2, and then finally it may become NPA. It may take 6 months, or the technical classification what the banks do will take about 6 months. So the Q1, Q2, only you will realize in Q3 that what is the actual amount of new NPAs created. I'll give you one small example. One of the biggest bank in India in private sector, which specializes in giving loans and personal loans without any security. If you look at the loan book, the asset book, 1/3 is unsecured. More than 1/3 is unsecured. And in India, so far, we have never faced any major crisis or failures of on personal front. We have had business failures, industries or business promoters have not paid. I don't want to say business failures. The promoters have failed to pay, and so that has happened. But then the individuals have always been honest and always been paying promptly, and there was no issue. But could be this time there could be some failures on that front also, which could be a little larger because of the job loss, which are because of in many companies have reduced the number of people. Many companies have cut the increment or no increment or reduced the salaries and number of people. So they are all commitments. They have commitments to make, and if they don't pay, now this is the case of a bank, and there are many such NBFCs who have lent to people to buy right from sofa sets to things which they cannot recover any money, even 1 rupee. So there is a crisis. I feel that government has realized it, and RBI is slowly working towards providing that kind of a liquidity to them. But then the liquidity will save the NBFCs temporarily for the time being. But then the money should come back from the public. The money should come from the people. So that is where everything goes back.
I see. Also on the liquidity side, the government funding also. Government itself is in a great financial crunch because the GST collections have fallen drastically. The average in April was only around 28,000 crore, vis-a-vis the general average of about 1 lakh crore a month. Now that's some 72% drop. So how is the government itself going to, is money printing can be one way out of the problem, but is the government so stretched that banking industry will also suffer, and therefore the entire nation will be the liquidity to start things up?
Yeah, no, government is in has got its own problem. They were trying to, the FRBM Act, which was brought in 2003. As per the Act, by now we should be surplus, revenue surplus. We should not have any deficit at least.
Yes.
But that FRBM Act has gone to cause, and state FRBM, if you look at it, even more pathetic. Many states it is. If you look at the budget, I have a feeling that completely our budget has to be redrafted in the current situation. We may have to come out with a totally a new one, because with this kind of revenue, nothing could be done, right? So if you look at the revenue receipt of 20 lakh crore and revenue expenditure of 26 lakh crore. So we have a shortfall of 6 lakh crore on revenue account itself, which is about 2.7%, and fiscal deficit is 3.5%. And we have a borrowing of 7.96 lakh crores, and interest payment is 7 lakh crores. Interest. So we borrow to pay interest. Then who is going to repay the money? Maybe our children have to repay the money. I don't know who is going to repay the money. If you look at the Ricardo theory, you have to tax now and pay later, or you have to borrow now and pay collect by tax later. So there is a challenge there. But there is one thing which Government of India has done, or RBI has done, like a typical Indian housewife. Whether the husband is a drunkard or husband is irresponsible, the wife somehow holds on to the gold and never leaves it out. And at times of crisis, it comes out for help. Similarly, I think India, particularly RBI, was holding on to a lot of cash, a lot of forex reserves, a lot of gold, and luckily, which has appreciated substantially, more than doubled in the last few years. And that can come into big help. It's not that we have not used RBI. We have used RBI in the past few times without any logic, without any specific requirement. We have taken money from RBI, but now this is a crisis time. In a crisis time, there is nothing wrong with a specific purpose, specific object. You can do it. Particularly if you look at RBI, one is the potential profit, which they can earn out of. One is the interest which they get from the government securities, which may be about 65,000 or 70,000 crores, which anyhow they get every year. It's not nothing new. And they keep adding to the, forex reserves as are added. RBI was buying dollars last year. And the CGRA account, like the currency and gold revaluation account, it is an accounting issue where substantial revaluation has added because of the gold and currency appreciation. US dollar has appreciated on an average more than 6-7% in the last 1 year, which would have added more than 2 or at least 2 lakh crores, which would have added. So these things can be put to better use, and RBI also now can sell the dollars at a better price and realize a part of it. And all these things, if you look at it, RBI has got a contingency fund. We don't know what is the purpose. Now this is a contingent. The situation is pretty bad, so they may have to take into that contingency fund probably if required. The contingency fund amount is 2 lakh crore. And as per our former finance minister, this thing we need 65,000 crores, which is nothing. It can be taken from any one of these things to tackle the immediate situation. And also, all these things fall into Dr. Bimal Jalan committee report. Even as per that committee report, we have a surplus somewhere around. We have a buffer of about more than 20%, and somewhere around 10 lakh crore, 9 lakh crore or 10 lakh crore should be the numbers. We don't have exact number. I don't have exact number, but I'm reasonably sure that it should be somewhere around 9 lakh crore to 10 lakh crore. So with this, they can tackle and they can transfer some of the retained earnings or contingency fund to out of revaluation to the government, and the government can use that fund. But the challenge will be that the next level, even if it is given to bank, whether banks are willing to lend whether the banks are willing to pass on the reduced rate of interest to the MSMEs or their customers. Now, that's where everything finally boils down. Yeah.
Since we've discussed economy and financials in general, let me ask you, with your knowledge and background in stock markets and financial analysis, why is the stock market performing rather healthy, even in such deep crisis across the world?
There are two ways of looking at it. You can either say that absolutely no logic in the market, but then there is a logic. Logic is a liquidity. Governments world over, if you look at John Hopkins University report, they very clearly say that most of the governments world over get a fail mark. They fail in handling this pandemic. US or many people, many countries think that pumping in liquidity into the market will solve the problem. It is not going to solve the problem. Is creating physical infrastructure, health infrastructure. That's a problem today, particularly in US. To some extent, India seems to be far better off, at least, or this part of the country seems to be far better off than that, because we still see empty beds and empty hospitals. But government world over thinks that pumping in more liquidity is going to save the economy or solve the problem. I don't think that is going to solve the economy. Now, what happened in 2008 when the quantitative easing happened? More money came in. The money went into speculative assets. Even the solid assets became speculative assets. Crude went up to $140, doubled, more than doubled within a few months. Gold went up from $750 to $1,800. So it goes into wrong hands. Instead of going into the hands of migrant labor, instead of going into the hands of MSMEs, if it goes to wrong hands, it will only create a balloon, one more balloon, the froth. So to me, the stock markets are not reacting logically right now. In short run, we always say that the stock markets are like a weighing machine over a longer period of time. But in shorter period of time, they're like voting machine. It's an opinion express. So the opinion seems to be that market, we are going to get out of it. Basically, this has come out of two reasons. One reason, basically, there is a first order effect, which is life threatening. People are scared from March end to April 1st. Nothing came to their mind. But then the reality strikes, no, all of us are not going to die. Many of us are going to survive. A few of us are going to die, or problems are going to happen. But the economy, the next second order effect comes into it. Now, the more of the opportunity lies in the second order effect. It's easy to say that restaurants are not going to open up. And that's why the hotels are not going to open up. That's why the share prices are down. But there are a set of people who look at opportunity there. There are a set of people who have a lot of cash, or sitting on a lot of cash, zero debt, not leverage. Now, they will look at this as a good opportunity, a golden opportunity to look at mergers and acquisitions to take over and consolidation. If you look at what is happening in large corporates like Reliance or GlaxoSmithKline, which is selling its stake of HUL, I believe that these are all the things which is happening. Consolidation is going to happen, and that is getting reflected to some extent. But the stock market, to me, is overvalued. Again, from 28p, it has come down to 21p. No issue. It has come down certainly. But it was at 17, 18p on March 23rd and 24th. From there, it has gone up by 10-15%. So markets will realize this slowly, the actual impact on the companies and their balance sheet, and in the Q1 and Q2. Then you will see the real bottom by this year end or the beginning. And then, of course, India, I always say that, it may, though whatever way it sounds cynical, that India, every bad news is a good news as far as the investors are concerned, because it is going to throw excellent opportunity to invest into real estate, invest into stocks. The affordability of the people at the BPL or not BPL, the lower middle class family will increase because of this cost reduction. The MSMEs to some extent will benefit because of the rentals coming down. All this, a lot of things are happening today, which is also going to benefit some of the MSMEs. Yeah.
Okay. One speculation that we have in India is that this is a great opportunity for India to replace China as the factory of the world. So we're expecting a lot of, and there is a general antagonism towards China. So how competent are we, and how prepared are we to attract all these investments that may be leaving China?
See, in the past, we have had better experiences, but we have had bitter experience also with foreign companies coming into India and then not treating them well or treating them well. They're happy with India. Both has happened, and And the companies which came into India made a lot of money, and they've also quit without paying taxes. That also has happened. So if you look at it, yes, this is a very good opportunity for India, Indian companies, Indian government to grab this opportunity. But it's not going to be all that easy as people think. It's not that everybody is going to quit, because China has got a lot of muscle power, money power, and political power, and all those things. So they will also try to disrupt the market and in a way. But this problem has shaken everyone world over. So there will be certainly some shifting which will happen, if not in all, not in full, if not everything, but certainly some shifting will happen. When that happens, will it necessarily come to India? Well, we wish for it, we hope for it, but it all depends upon how our government is going to react proactively and positively. We have a challenge. We want the FDI, we want the foreign portfolio investors or foreign direct investment to come into India, but in the way we want, just naturally to protect our interests. At the same time, we are also passing a resolution where we say that the countries which are sharing our border should not go through the direct route, should go through the government route to buy any equity into the Indian. It happened in HDFC case, which is, I am with it. I think we should be careful in allowing that. So we need FTA, but we also have to be careful. This is point number one. Point number two, will they look at India? Yes, they will look at India, but then let us not forget that we have tough competitors, not from bigger nations, but then there are nations like Vietnam, Bangladesh, Malaysia, Thailand, for that matter. In the past, they've proved that Bangladesh, countries like Thailand and Philippines, they've proved that they are far better than us, right from textiles to garments to many things in the past. So we have to be careful, and we have to take extra effort to attract them into our country. This is point number two. Point number three, while we are attracting, as I said earlier, we have to be careful. We should ensure that no treaty shopping happens within the country, between states. OECD nations have taken this very seriously, and a lot of discussion going on in how to avoid this treaty shopping, because in treaty shopping, no one is benefited except those companies. Now look at the case of a big car manufacturer coming to India. Is there really a need for us to give them any big incentive? India itself is a big market of 125 crore people with affordability of at least about 1/10 of them to buy a car. So if you really look at it, there is no need for us to give more than what is actually required. It is enough we provide a right kind of ecosystem, legal system, and labor laws. They will automatically come. But what has happened is, within the states, within India, states started fighting among each other, and they have started yielding to the pressure, and they have started giving unnecessary concessions to these people. And ultimate loser is the state, not only the state, India. So if a factory is going to come into India, anyhow they will come, whether it is Andhra Pradesh, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, or Gujarat, they will come. But between the states, when we fight, what happens? We give a lot of concessions to them, and ultimate loser is the country. So we have to be careful in seeing to that we don't end up in treaty shopping. Yes, we need FTA, we need FPA in certain sectors, wherever within the limit already prescribed, and we may have to liberalize certain areas. That is fine. Coupled with this, I think we have to remember that the one major advantage for the countries to come to us is that we do have a major domestic market, unlike many other countries, with purchasing power. Okay, now of course it will take a little bit of a change in the next 2-3 months, but then we will come out of it. I'm very strongly feeling that we'll get out of it. So that the domestic market is something very important. So this is my take on people moving out of China and coming into India. We need to concentrate on one particular area before we move on to the next topic. We have to concentrate on one particular area where China has done very well, and we should learn from them, is that right from pharma, APIs, or ensuring that the raw material supply is unendingly there in China, and they supply the raw material needed to the entire world from China. Now that is where we have to be very careful. We have to concentrate more on it. India, in its vision, I think all along have been concentrating or trying to concentrate more on innovation, whether successfully or not successfully, that is for the time to say, but then instead of import replacement. And I strongly feel this is a time to not to worry much about innovation, keep that aside, let it happen side by side, but then concentrate more on import replacement. Because that is going to be a major threat for us after so much of industrial growth, so much of thing we are doing to the world, exporting so many things, but we are still importing the basic essential things from China. So I think we should look at import replacement and use this opportunity to grab that import replacement as a major theme.
Okay. One question about the jobs front. I'm sure a lot of youth are also listening into this program, not just executives. So I'd just like to know from you, over the last 60 days or so, India probably has lost more jobs than what was created over about 5 or 6 years. And we have always been talking about our demographic dividend in the pipeline. Now, just as we are about to tap the dividend, comes the COVID, and has struck us so badly. And India has about 1 million youth coming out of colleges or are in the labor market each month, or about 10 to 12 million a year. Now, where are the jobs going to come? Which are the sectors, and what should those coming out of college now be looking out for?
Okay. I'll talk about the sectors which can create more job or sectors which are going to flourish a little later. But then if you look at the job loss or the unemployment issue, it's not an isolated issue only to India. Developed countries and many countries have this problem of unemployment happening, and they have schemes for, in US, you have this weekly data being published to US jobless claims on Thursday evening, and it keeps on going. In the last 45 days, I think about 33 million people have filed for jobless claim, and the number keeps going up like anything in US. So in India also it's very high. But we are also creating some jobs, not to the extent which is needed. If you look at one of the reports, which is the India Meets Britain Tracker 2020 by Grant Thornton and CAA, the Indian companies, there are about 842 firms in UK, and the Indian companies in UK, they have created 110,793 jobs last year, and which is 6,000 more than 2019. And this is the data which they published, and basically in technology, telecom, and pharma. So we are able to, but 1 lakh is nothing, considering the size of India, considering the number of engineering graduates getting out of Tamil Nadu alone. This is nothing. So we do have to create more jobs. The challenge here is that one side job creation, the other side is there are jobs which the necessary skill sets are not available. So both are a problem. Now, in 70s or 80s, when computerization started taking place during our college days, I remember people are talking that people are going to lose job and technology is going to take over, automation is going to take over. And that was not the first time we spoke about automation. If you remember Charlie Chaplin's Modern Times. So this was there 50 years back, we've been talking about it, right? But that is not. On the contrary, the technology change has created more jobs. So I feel that going forward, whether it creates more job or not, but I don't think we're going to lose much of job, but reskilling is needed and cross-skilling is needed and upskilling is needed in many places. When I started learning the computer language, the language I learned first was BASIC and then COBOL. Where is it today? Nobody knows what is BASIC or what is COBOL. Now today the languages are completely different. People talk about Oracle and various other things about computer and IT and all. So if you're not continuously learning, the days where I was a commerce graduate, I learned something in accountancy, I joined a firm and retire after 40 years. I think that has changed. Now you have to keep on learning. Continuous learning is there. It is not only for chartered accountants. It is not only for company secretaries. It is not only for cost and management accountants who have CPE. For us stockbrokers also, we have a CPE and we have to write and appear for an exam once in 3 years and upgrade ourselves and get various certificates. So that is going to be the order of the day, because industry keeps on changing, evolving, technology changes. So you have to upgrade yourself, upskill yourself, reskill yourself. Whereas there is a big gap between what the industry needs and what the institutions or the typical educational institutions provide. Very few institutions make that handshake happen between the industry and the academic. Otherwise, the purely academic is totally different from and what industry needs. So there is a challenge there that industry academic interaction, more and more interaction is needed, and that can only bridge that gap and bridge that skills, those kind of skills needed. And apart from that, as I said earlier, one classic example I always give is that there was, in our native place, we used to have somebody, one person living out of just repairing a radio and cordless phones. And technology changed. He lost his job. Today, he cannot do any of such kind of a business. So he has to upgrade. He should know how to change, to repair a laptop. So you have to. This is what is happening. If you know only one thing and you are stuck up there, frozen in time. This is what I feel. I feel that new areas, new sectors will create more jobs. And the sectors which I am looking at is that more so in light of current happening. This should have happened much earlier. Somehow it has not happened, but now I'm glad that it is happening. Is that the edutech, the technology, the digital or Internet of Things, and e-tail. So all these things, e-tail is, e-retail was always there, but education. I'm associated with a couple of schools and colleges, and we are discussing very seriously about, we cannot stop. We keep paying 50 lakhs, 80 lakhs, 1 crore salary to the teachers, and colleges are closed, schools are closed, the children want to be educated. We cannot stop this thing, and school has to run, college has to run. And these children have to learn, and it costs a lot to the students, the teachers, parents, everyone. And so technology is going to play an important role there, which was at a very, very basic level earlier. Now that is an important role. So this is something which can throw open quite a lot of job opportunities, IT and IT-enabled services, which is already there. And one area which people started ignoring in the last 10, 15 years is that fitness and healthcare. We were all talking quite a lot about fitness and healthcare in the last 10 or 15 years, but actually doing nothing, adding more weight. And so I think this area, fitness and healthcare, and this area is going to do very well, the apps or the gadgets related to this. And of course, real estate, both can happen. One side, people talk about work from home, because of which there will be reduction in office space, because of which reduction in rentals, which is happening right now. I've never heard rentals coming down in the last 30 years. But the first time I'm hearing now, and I'm actually going through practical, I'm sharing my practical experience where a big corporate called and told us that, no, look, we'll give you 50% of the rent for the April and May until lockdown is shifted. After that, we'll give 75%. If it is fine, we are sending the agreement. Otherwise, no negotiation. Don't worry, we'll cancel the agreement. So this is what is happening, which is a fact. But then there is also the other side of the argument, which says that with social distancing happening in offices also, where 300 people are working, now only 100 people will need the same space. So there will be the space requirement is going to remain static. In addition to that, there will be more space requirement there at home, because we need. I don't want my children to run. If I'm working from home, so I need to create one office room inside the house. So now that is going to create a need for a 3-bedroom to 4-bedroom, 2-bedroom to 3-bedroom. People are going to migrate to that level because they are saving a lot on traveling and other things that can be shifting to the other area. So this can happen for the next. I presume the timeline to be 2 years, 1.5 to 2 years. And after that, also people, if they get used to it, if you read the book Work Naked, so I mean, if you're used to that, so this can happen. Then online transactions. I don't buy my vegetables now. When I buy my vegetables, the vegetable vendor says that, sir, I don't want to touch the currency, just Google Pay. This is not happening at a very high level. I'm talking about the lowest strata of the society, the vegetable vendor or the magazine selling. He says that, sir, do the Google transfer. I don't want to touch the currency. So the digital transactions are going to go up substantially, and there is going to be a lot of opportunities there coming up. And very importantly, online content. As you all know that we've been discussing more about OTT and online content. People are having more time because they aren't, particularly in cities like Bombay, they don't travel 3 hours or 3.5 hours a day. People down south, we are not used to that kind of a traveling, so we don't realize it. But almost 1 crore of people in Bombay and around Bombay travel that kind. So they are going to save a lot of time, and they are looking at the online content. So online content and in digital, like Netflix, or that is going to be a big thing. And specialty chemicals and API in pharma sector, because I mentioned about import replacement than innovation. I think there we are going, because we have the capacity. We have enough capacity, but we are not concentrating all alone on that. I think now there we will have biosimilars or biotechnology related area. And one thing probably for the next 3 to 5 years, what can happen is more concentration will be on ESG business, environmental and socially conscious companies with more good governance. So people will concentrate, invest more. ESG funds are there. So there a lot of things have happened, and people will move towards asset-light model. People will not look at buying an asset. Instead of that, they will rent it out, and nobody would like to own. Yeah.
Since we are hitting the 45-minute mark, let me ask you one final question before we go on to participants' questions, which is about tens of thousands of Indians coming back to India. So, and on the other hand, nations becoming more inward-looking. America wants all companies to come to America. Japan is now giving incentives for Japanese companies in China to come back and reset shop in Japan. So will that nullify whatever hopes we have of FDI coming in, investments coming into India? And what about all these returning NRIs?
See, this is, to me, it's a panic reaction, right? I don't think 1 year, 2 years down the line, they would ever look at coming back to India, because India is never going to be like any other developed country in terms of many infrastructure, which they have enjoyed there. Okay, having enjoyed it for 10, 15 years, I don't think they'll be willing to compromise on it, unless otherwise they've gone there only 2, 3 years back. If they've settled there, it's very difficult for them to come back. The children will not come back. So it's a panic reaction. Of course, some of them will come back. This one part, this is only a guesswork. We have to wait and see that how it happens. But knowing the psychology and mindset of people, no offense, but then the people who are born and brought up here, after coming back after 10 years, keep cribbing and complaining about India. We know how the way they, so it's very difficult for them to. We are a different animal. We know how to sustain, live in this kind of environment. We know they're all used to it. So it's very difficult for them, and I don't think it is going to nullify. But then the FDI flowing into India, of course, it will be there. It will continue to be there in a very big way. We are going to come, because one important budget announcement which many of us missed out, or probably it is not noticed, but I think it will have a big impact, is that anybody investing in infrastructure in India for the next 3 years, I think 2023, they will get complete tax exemption, which was there originally for Mauritius route, which was misused, and later STI, SIT came in, and they tightened the participatory note route, and all those things happened. But then now I think that route can be taken advantage, and the countries like Japan and many other countries who have a lot of surplus, a lot of money, will come back to India. And as I said, the proactive states will take advantage of it. A state like Andhra Pradesh, which was there about a few years back, I don't know the status right now, but then there are a few proactive states which can take advantage of this, and they will try to bring it. But my only concern is that our request to the states is that let us not allow these companies to do any treaty shopping. Let us welcome them, let us give them the necessary facilities and ecosystem, but let us not allow them to do the treaty shopping, and let us not be the losers, let us be the gainers of it.
Now let's take a couple of participants' questions. I'll give you a minute or two for each question. Rather tongue-in-cheek posed by somebody is, when all countries are affected, are we going to have a status quo after we all come out of it?
Sorry,
because everybody is dropping, and then everybody will come up again. Are we going to have a status quo when we all come out of it? Because every country has been affected, so we all went down. we will all come up proportionally to where we were before the event. So is that
I
the
think
likely scenario?
No, it's a very, very valid point. I'm tempted to think more like that. But then a lot of geopolitical equations are there. There are smart people, there are intelligent people, there are madmen out there. So I don't want to tell who is madman, who is intelligent, who is smart. We all know which political leader what. So people will try to take advantage of it. Situation changes every 100, 200 years. This could be one such opportunity if we are able to have a proper, the leadership takes advantage of it and change it. There will be certainly some difference between the countries. I don't think it will be the same status quo for all of us. Because even this COVID didn't affect, COVID affected the developed countries more than the developing nations or other countries at the initial stages, which none of us expected. So things could be different this time. I don't, though more I also, the thought process came to my mind, but I don't think there will be certainly a clear difference, clearly marked difference between the countries when they come out, and depending upon the leadership, individual leadership, and how they take advantage of it. There was a question on MSME. Have you answered it?
Is this a good time to?
Yeah.
Because employment is so scarce these days. Is it a good time for those coming out of college to set up a startup?
See, you should remember one thing about the startup is that it is a mindset with which you come. Doing business needs a lot of the aptitude, attitude, and the mental makeup, and preparedness to face quite a lot of failures, preparedness to face quite a lot of no's in life. Are you so tough enough? Then I think certainly there's going to be quite a lot of opportunities in India, which is already there, and we'll get more such opportunities where you can give a tough fight to much bigger organizations. Today, the YouTube channels of individuals is giving quite a lot of threat to big print media. People in the print media, which has gone through a tough time in the last 1.5 months. Even before that, also they were going through a tough patch. But some YouTube channel started by some individual and can give a tough fight. So it's big or small matters in certain areas, but in certain areas it doesn't matter. So time to look at such kind of opportunities. If you have that kind of a mental makeup, if you have that, money is the least of, it's the last one to come, but you need that kind of an attitude and aptitude and mental makeup, then certainly it is worth looking at such kind of business opportunity. Yeah.
That is about the oil economy. This is one structural change that we are witnessing. Two reasons from India's viewpoint. One, oil is coming cheaper. The central government has gained a lot by increasing the excise duties and thereby earning a lot of revenue. On the other, the Gulf sector alone, 9 million Indians are employed, and many of them are going to lose their jobs. So on the job front, we are losing out. And what will happen in a scenario if the Gulf nations or that entire region does not bounce back at all? Because oil is not going to bounce back even after COVID, but suddenly to $140 levels.
The crude, even our own government, our own minister has made a statement that though we are comfortable at lower prices, but we don't want the price to crash. We are comfortable at $30 to $40 or something to that extent. He has made a statement. So I think when the price goes up drastically, there is a problem. When the price falls, crashes, also there is a problem. The classic example could be coal. A company, a world leader in coal until 2010-11, which took over another big giant in 2011-12, crashed about a year and a half back or 2 years back and filed for bankruptcy in US. Look at, see, the company was a market leader and it took over another market leader in 2011 and very strong because the coal price went up to $120. And from there in 2016, 17, I think, or 18, it crashed to $45. So the company went bankrupt and they've gone down. So it is very dangerous. But in crude, luckily, most of them are sovereign governments. They're all not individual companies. Most of them are sovereign governments, and they have a lot of other leverage possible. Of course, there will be job loss, and this job loss need not necessarily create a lot of problem except for those who have joined these companies recently in the last 1 or 2 years, most of them who have joined the oil economy. Luckily, in oil economy, there is a clear difference between where you get your employment. If you're joining US or Europe, then whatever you earn will most probably go to pay your EMI. You know, you'll be buying even your sofa set to everything to buy EMI, and you'll be repaying that, and entirely you'll not have anything left at the end of your career. Whereas Middle East, it is not like that. There are less avenues to spend, very, very less avenue to spend, whereas the earnings are quite high. So most of them would have had substantial savings and invested back in India. So I don't see any major problem unemployment side from that. There is a second set of people who went there 2-3 years back. They would not have sufficient savings. So there will be a problem. So whether we'll be able to redeploy them in India, I doubt it. So certainly in the next 6 months to 1 year, we are going to have a problem. Some more like Manrega sort of temporary job creation program should be there in different sectors, in infrastructure sectors. We keep on talking about Delhi, Bombay, industry, the corridor. Instead of that, let us, kickstart it and something like that, some major project, and give employment to them, and take out the money from RBI or wherever the resources are. The government is going to borrow. Today they have said they're going to borrow, increase their borrowing by 20%. Let them do it. Normally, we're not happy with that, but then in situations like this, we should not worry about those kind of things, because when life is at stake, the lives of lakhs and lakhs of people are at stake. Yeah.
I think we have lost him. I just have a question here from Manu Sasidharan from University of Cambridge. In developing countries, often the physical infrastructure of road and railways are the largest valued public owned asset. Will we see structural reforms in the future?
Sorry, I don't get the question. Can you repeat it? Sorry.
In the developing countries, I hope you are able to hear me.
Yeah, clear.
All right. In the developing countries, often the physical infrastructure of road and railways are the largest valued public owned assets. See structural reform in the future.
Yeah. It has already started happening in railways to some extent. The privatization of certain sectors, certain routes has started happening. I feel that it will get much more accelerated now. More sectors, routes will get privatized, and there'll be more takers also for that going forward. Though now public transport is the next few months or few weeks, it will be a problem. But then after that, I think it will start growing. But I think there is a potential opportunity for a big structural change. And hopefully, I think the government is seriously looking at such kind of structural change, and they will try to do that. In port, they tried doing it, but I don't think that we have gone much. We have made much progress. The ports are traditionally in India, all the ports are trusts, except Kamaraj Port, which was a limited company. Now, I think there was a proposal. There is a thing to convert all these into companies, and so that later they can be with various objects in mind. But I don't know to what extent that has progressed. But this is a time for such kind of progressive measures which can take us to the next level. Yeah.
So it is wonderful conversing with you, Mr. Nagappan.
Thank you, Mr. Joe.
I'll end by saying something on a lighter note. This morning I was reading the Sydney Morning Herald, and there is a report that says a local provincial government has said, today is Mother's Day, but don't kiss your mother. For social distancing. So such are the unusual times we are living in.
Yeah.
With that, let me hand over to Leo David to sum up and conclude.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I'm Leo Gertrude from the Department of Visual Communication. As you said, economy is one of the hottest topics of this season, and foreseeing the challenge is a work of the genius. Today's session showed the challenges and rough road ahead for Indian economy and the insights how it will overcome the obstacles to be a stronger economy through our speaker, Mr. Valliappan, and Mr. Joe's conversation. Kumaraguru College of Liberal Arts and Science like to thank our speaker, Mr. Valliappan, and moderator, Mr. Joe, and like to extend our best wishes. We have around had 200 participants for the session, and a special thanks to them. We'd like to thank our media partner, Times of India, our technology partner, Social Beat, and our marketing partner, DigiGrade. The audience, a soft reminder on our tomorrow's session. The topic is Infusion of Technology in Academia. The speaker is Dr. Vinesh Thirichelvam, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Asia Pacific University, Malaysia, and the moderator will be Mr. Rajesh Kumar, co-founder, FACE Academy, Bangalore. The session will start at 11 a.m. Please do check our website for details and registrations. Till then, stay home, stay safe. Good day.